Alright. Okay. So hopefully we'll be on the air here. Let's see in a moment. Looks like I might be on the air. All right. Well, I'm going to assume it is until somebody tells me otherwise. So, good morning. This is Grace Baptist Church, the Adult One Bible Study. My name is Norm Ellis. Glad you're here with us online as well as in the classroom. And today we're going to be in Genesis chapter 11. We'll look a little bit at 10 too, but mostly 11. And the title is called Stalled. Stalled. Look at these three areas. United, verses 1 through 4 of Genesis 11. This is all Genesis 11 and main verses. Reviewed, 5 through 7. And dispersed, 8 through 9. Chapter 11 of Genesis. And the main point is that God expects His will and His desires to be carried out. We're going to see how that applies to us in the same way, okay? So let's have a word of prayer, and then we'll start. Dear Father, thank you so much for all you've done for us. Thank you for the study today. Just pray that you reveal these truths to our hearts, Lord. And just thank you for all that you've done. And be with those that are on the way here. Keep them safe. Watch over those that are sick, Lord, away from us. Keep them safe as well. And help them get better if they're sick. And thank you for those online as well. In your Son's name I pray. Amen. Amen. All right. So, stalled. When you hear the word stalled, what does that mean to you?
I was driving my Oldsmobile and stalled.
So something that was going is not going anymore. Now, if you're flying an aircraft, that's a bad thing. Who'd like to read one of our verses today? You got a volunteer, right? Any volunteers? You want one? Okay. So you guys have to fight over this one.
Oh, you don't want it?
There was no fight here.
No, only 3 verses today, but there's actually other verses I might be touching on too as well that apply to this. But anyways, as we said, God expects His will and desires to be carried out. And that sounds almost, in our way of looking at it, that's kind of selfish. Why just His? Well, let's put it this way: it's His world, right? It's His world. You'd expect, if it's your world, that would be what you do. Kind of like in a household, right? The parents, what they say, that's the will. That's what comes about. So just start thinking about some of these things. And I can't remember the exact connection here on this one. but the question is asked here on our handouts. If you look at our handouts, the first page of handout 1. I should review these really quick. So, of course, we got handout number 1, which is basically the things I would normally put on a board if I had room. I have some of them on here, but not everything. But I pack it with more stuff than I probably should. But self-explanatory, some of these things on the first 2 pages of our handouts, okay? And handout number 2 talks about towers in the ancient world. Towers and the significance of them and different things like that. Very good information on there. We may touch on some of that as well. And handout number 3 was one I found, which is a very, very good representation of what they think the Tower of Babel looked like. Because we're talking about the Tower of Babel today. And so this is a very good representation of that. Gives you scales and all that stuff. For instance, have you been to Chicago? I have. Man, go through that town. We took a river cruise, and the architecture is beautiful, but they're just towering above your head, these big skyscrapers. One of them is called the Monadnock Building, which I guess is the tallest brick structure now standing in Chicago. Anyway, not using, in other words, the modern techniques we use today. And it's 197 feet tall. And the base is 62 feet. That's pretty tall, right? Pretty tall. But they theorized that the Tower of Babel, being a brick-only structure, was close to 300 feet tall. It had a base of 300 feet. To compare it to other structures that were built later on, like the Great Pyramid of Giza, and it's 480 feet. So that's pretty much the highest you can go with that kind of construction techniques, right? So it gives you an idea of the scale. Where it was built was on the plain of Shinar, it's called, and which is basically a tabletop. So I don't know if you've ever been to some flat states before. I was in Illinois for a while. I was assigned there for a while. And the part of Illinois was the southern part of Illinois. And there is nothing but flat land that's been planted with corn or soybean.
Kansas is like that too.
Kansas is probably like that too. There's other places, I'm sure. I mean, you can't see anything because of corn. But if you go up on the overpass, you can see for miles. And the overpass isn't that tall, but it's that kind of thing. So if you were on top of this tower, could you have a pretty good view of things?
Probably.
Yes. You'd be above the noise. You'd be above the dust. You might be in low clouds at times, all that kind of stuff. So was it impressive? Yes, it was impressive during that time frame, if you think about it. So we'll talk a little bit about that also. So some of the things that get us talking about to begin with is advertising. So we're going to talk a little bit. What are some of your all-time favorite advertisements you've seen? Any come to mind?
That Lifesavers commercial in the 70s.
Oh, yeah?
The father and son.
Uh-huh.
He lost a basketball game, and his dad said, "Hey, son, here's a lifesaver."
Made all the difference, didn't it?
It does. Well,
Well, that's what they wanted you to think, right? Yeah. Here's a lifesaver. That'll make it all better. Any others come to mind?
Yeah, but it was banned.
Oh. Well, we probably haven't talked about it.
Not because it was pornographic or anything like that, but English Ford came out with a commercial showing off one of their cars. There was a car sitting in a driveway, and you see the cat come up. The cat jumps up on the hood, walks up the hood, up the windshield, and sticks his head down where the sunroof is at. And you see the sunroof go.
Oh.
And then you see somebody fall down inside, and his cat water slides off. It was all computer generated.
No cats were harmed during that commercial.
PETA went nuts over it.
Yeah.
PETA went absolutely.
It was funny. One of my favorite commercials of all time is a local one, and it has to do with something called a trunk monkey. And I don't even remember.
Oh yes. Oh.
And I don't even remember. It was some car lot. Probably.
Yeah.
But they advertised it. You buy one of our cars, you can get the option called a trunk monkey.
Yeah.
And this trunk monkey would do all kinds of things for you. It tried to bribe the police officer if you got pulled over. It's a joke. And it would if somebody tried to steal your car, it'd sneak up on him with a big old wrench, hit him, and knock him off the bridge. Anyway, it's funny. It's funny. Another good one is outrageous audio. A local one. Ever seen this guy?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that guy's crazy.
I just love watching him.
Yeah, he's nuts.
Now, my wife doesn't like it so much, but he's crazy.
I met him in person when I
Yeah.
bought the stereo for my truck,
That's hilarious.
and he just
Same.
talks
He's not like that in
mild,
person.
reduced.
I know.
Yeah.
He's been interviewed, and that persona is just for his ads. But have you ever seen that one before?
No.
Oh, it's just crazy. Outrageous audio. I mean, he's over the top. Anyway, but there's some national ones too. I remember Wendy's commercial many years ago.
Yeah.
This little lady, Clara Peller. I remember that because there was a lot of news about her. She came up to this counter and got her hamburger at this other place, not Wendy's. And they open it up, and there's this little tiny speck in the middle. It says, what'd she say?
Where's
the beef? See, you all remember that, don't you? Yeah.
She got fired because somebody hired her to do another commercial.
Oh, yeah?
And she used "Where's the beef" line.
Yeah. You can't do that. I
So
won't.
Wendy's like, but
Anyway, so there's some favorites, right? Advertising has a tremendous influence not only on purchasing decisions of individuals, but also an entire culture. The most successful advertising slogans in our culture being the company brings to mind would be some of these, like "Just Do It." That was, of course, Nike. Yes.
what was the guy in Portland? What was his?
Anyway,
Oh, Christ, I can't
Night.
Phil
No,
Knight. No.
no, it was I
Was
think it was a appliance store or something like that or something. Not standard, but it was.
Oh,
Peterson's.
Tom Peterson.
Peterson,
Yes,
yes.
yes. Tom Peterson.
The only, no, it wasn't the only way.
There was also, speaking of funny ads, the funny ads are the ones that appeal to me because I think about them a lot. I don't know why most ads are not funny, but like the one I remember is this used car salesman. Oh, almost remember his name.
Dick
But he-
Walsh from Seattle.
No, it was.
He was.
I'll eat a bug if you can get a better deal than mine. And I forgot his name now, but he hit at his dog Spot. The story was he had a dog Spot, but it really wasn't a dog. It was like a leopard or a lion or a camel. I forgot his name. That's funny.
Was it the guy with the kangaroo?
Yeah, could be that same one. It was funny to see what he came up with next. Of course, where's the beef? We talked about that. Have it your way. Who does that one?
That's
Burger King, right? Yes, and that was one of the most successful ones. They've recently modernized it to "You Rule." I like "Have It Your Way" better. I don't know what "You Rule." I guess this means you get everything you want. I guess. But anyway, their marketing people understand human nature. That's the key here. We want to be in control. The only problem is we are not in control. God is, and He expects us to obey Him. So that's where our segue is into our thing today. Is that the people of Earth were thinking, well, we're in control. You know, we are going to do these wonderful things, and we know that God told us to do certain things, but we're kind of our own destiny now. We can figure things out. That's okay. It was kind of that thing going on. And that's where the segue, like I said, is into that. So what is the goal of most advertisers?
To sell.
To sell, right? They want to control what you think so that you'll buy their product or service, right? That's their goal, right? As humans living with a sinful nature, we will always struggle between the desire to do what we want and the desire to do what God wants. The advertisers want you to buy their product, do what they want, right? So why do people find it difficult to give up control in their lives?
We're selfish.
We're selfish. Okay. Yeah. We want our own way. Yeah. That have it your way, of course, was the Wendy's one, I think. No,
The
Burger King one, which kind of sums up a lot of it, doesn't it? What we want in life sometimes. But we do find it difficult, though, to give up control sometimes and to let someone else do something. It is a hard thing to do. So this session we're going to talk about, this study, will emphasize that God expects His will and desires to be carried out. And what that should mean for us as Christians as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about. The first one is believers must safeguard against selfish motives. That's the main idea of this first one here. And it's called United. United. Verses Genesis 11, 1 through 4. And we're up there in our little outline point. Let me look real quick at something else I had here. There it is. There's a lot of stuff preliminary to this in chapter 10. It's mainly, though, talking about the descendants of Noah. And it's not anything we need to worry too much about. But it basically tells us, if you look and read between the lines on some of these things especially, that they were told, first of all, to do what by God? They were supposed to be fruitful and multiply and do what? Fill the earth. Yeah. God made the earth for man. Okay? And He had certain things He wanted us to do. And one of them was to go throughout the earth and to fill the earth. And it was part of the blessing that we saw, the Adamic blessing and the Noah-based blessings that we see there. And so they were supposed to do. Now, I was going to try to find that in the map. Mount Ararat. No, it's not going to show me in this map. I just know it's not. But Mount Ararat was like in this area, I believe, if I remember right. And
Well, I saw a level on it before. I know I did. I'm sorry.
That's
assumed
okay.
it was
I saw a
working.
level earlier. It looks like it turned off. All right, you should be good again.
Well, all right. I have to apologize to you online. Apparently, the microphone, which was working, decided to stop working. So it has now been repaired, and I apologize. Maybe you could read my lips. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, but we're going to talk about these three terms really quick here. First of all, let's just define our terms. What does omnipotence mean? What do you think omnipotence means?
All power.
All power.
All knowing.
Uh-huh.
All knowledge.
So, I think this is Greek. The word omni. Omnidirectional, if you hear that word. It means all directions, right? So, omni means all, like you said. So, potence. What do you think that means? Strong or power, right? So, what kind of power is it? Like you said, all powerful. Not just partially powerful, not just half powerful, all powerful. What's all powerful? Anything you can conceive of, as high as you can conceive of, is what it's saying. All things that are known power-wise, it's all of it. It's full. It's full blast. So and now you're going to know what the other ones are here. But handout number 1 on the first page, I've defined these terms for you. So omnipotence means all powerful. God alone has ultimate power over all things, but He is also the source of all power. Not just has all power, but He's the source of all power. It says, though He sets limits on all of creation, He Himself is limitless in strength, wisdom, love, holiness, and the ability to perform His sovereign will. What is sovereign? We're going to read that in just a moment here. Another term, omniscience. Omniscience. Again, you see that omni, right? Which means, again, all. And what's science? What's familiar? What could science be? Science? Maybe where we get that from, perhaps, right?
Now that's,
Go ahead.
no, it wouldn't be.
Okay.
I was gonna say the doctor's name.
Okay. Well,
There's a reason they call it medical practice. So doctors aren't.
Practicing medicine, yeah.
Yeah,
it's seriously, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say,
Something about our Dr. Fauci.
we think, no. We think we know everything, and we always keep finding out why we don't. And we can apply it to lots of people and things. Let's leave it there. But you're right.
Yeah.
Omniscience, all knowing, that God alone has all knowledge of all things, which is an inherent part of His character and being. Nothing is outside God's sphere of knowledge. The word omniscient is defined as having infinite awareness, understanding, and insight. It is universal and complete knowledge. You know, that would be an amazing thing to have that kind of intellect. Just think about that.
I would not like that.
I mean, it'd be amazing.
that would be too much.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. Now, we use the word sovereign will in the explanation above in omnipotence, right? So let's just briefly look at sovereignty. We've talked about this before, I know, but this is just a thumbnail here on what we've talked about before. That God alone is the supreme power or authority over all that is. God is sovereign means God is God. God's plans are always greater than our plans. He is the author of our lives, and He knows where He wants to take us. Colossians 1:16 kind of sums that up as well. So, thinking of these terms, the question is, I think, how do you think each of these terms is revealed in these verses, 5 through 7? Do we see the all power of God here in these verses? Yeah, we do, don't we? We see that He has all power. He's large and in charge compared to this itty bitty little thing He's got to look way down at, you know. In reality, He already knew it, and I know that, but this is an illustration for people, right, to understand this a little bit. We had to put it in words that people can understand. As, you know, well, so when we look at it that way, we think of the scale of that, we realize a little bit of what's going on here. What about omniscience?
He knew what they were up to.
Yeah, He knew. Yeah. It wasn't like He heard pound, pound, pound. Oh, what's that I hear? I gotta go take. What are they? No,
Right.
He knew already.
You're doing stuff again.
He knew it already. Yes. And what about sovereignty? What about sovereignty? We see His sovereignty here.
Yeah, where he confused them.
Mm-hmm. Says basically that he's in control of them, right? Well, we'll have to take care of this situation now, right? He's going to have to do something. It says, come, let us go down, and there confuse their language, so they will not understand one another's speech. So, and we're going to talk about that part here in a little bit here in the next part. God was not worried about humanity's innovation or potential. He really wasn't. God was more concerned about, what do you think?
In relation to him.
Mm-hmm. And maybe,
And each other, for that matter of fact.
how about the results of what they were doing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all that's right. Goes on to say that God was concerned about all these things and the trouble and the suffering that disobedience would cause. Did we see suffering from earlier in the Garden of Eden?
Yeah.
Yep, we did, didn't we? The result of what? What humans did. Did we see suffering in the case of the pre-flood and the aftermath of the flood?
Yes.
We did, didn't we? Again, because of what man did, right? So this is like same chapter, another verse. Or that's not the right quote. Same song, just another verse of it. That's right. I think that's a better quote. But he knows that. So now, what could he do? Well, he could destroy the whole earth again, so maybe some other way.
Yeah.
But he said he would not.
But he said he would not do it by water, by flood, right? But he could do it some other way if he wanted to.
Well, and
So-
he did.
Yeah.
And
So-
he did.
It says, so let's confuse their language so they will not understand one another's speech. So, and again, we're going to talk about this in a little bit in just a few moments. As a matter of fact, I hate to get too deep into this part, but is it easy to if you need to get some task done, is it easy to do with somebody you can't communicate with, or is it hard?
It's a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can maybe sign it what you want. You can maybe make a picture of what you want, but it's so much easier to be able to speak it, And when you're all speaking the same language, it makes it really easy to be able to do things. And so this is a way of him being merciful to them. Instead of doing some cataclysmic thing that would destroy them or hurt them, right? He instead finds a way to thwart man's will and have them follow God's will by confusing their language. You see the mercy involved here? It's an act of care for them is what he's doing. Confusing their language was an act of grace. That's the word I was looking for. Though it didn't seem at the time it was, we need to remember the unity of believers should be rooted in our obedience to God's plans. Let's try that again. I stumbled over that one. We need to remember that the unity of believers should be rooted in our obedience to God's plans. And that's a very true statement. So, question is, how can unity of purpose sometimes get in the way of fulfilling God's purpose? How can unity of purpose sometimes get in the way of fulfilling God's purpose?
When you each have your own thought of
Okay, yeah.
how it should be,
Yeah.
of how we do go about it instead of.
We see the results of evil unity, don't we? Let's look at pre-World War II Germany, right? They were united. Yeah, they were united in the party of the Nazis, right? We see the horrible things that happened there, the terrible things that happened there, right? Could this also happen in this case of the people of Babel?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, and that's what God wanted to prevent. So we see God's grace there, don't we? Isn't that neat? Even though they didn't think it was a good thing. Suddenly they're not able to talk to the guy next to them about passing bricks to build this thing up higher. Hey, pass me the brick. And to him it sounds like, hey, what? What'd you say? Hey, go tell. Huh? I had a picture of that in my mind, maybe because I saw a movie one time, a long time ago, where this was illustrated. And suddenly you couldn't talk to each other, so you went to a side with your smaller group that you could communicate with, and you couldn't understand any of these other people. So what's that going to cause you to want to do?
Kind of separate yourself.
Yeah. It's fulfilling God's purpose here, right? After God confused the people's languages, then he dispersed them, which was what was supposed to happen in the first place. The blessing that he pronounced on them was contingent on them being fruitful and multiplying and filling the earth. Again, we'll go back to that just to reemphasize that. I apologize again online. You missed my first couple points, and I thought it was working, but we talked about being united, and that was Genesis 11, 1 through 4. And now we just finished talking about reviewed. This is Genesis 5 through 7. And And so now we're going to be, we discussed the importance of the terms omnipotence, omniscient, and sovereignty. So now we're going to go to our last main point, and that's dispersed. Dispersed. So on these last two verses, well, whoever got the last one, you did well. 2 verses only. Good to go. Last 2 verses focus on why God gave the place the name He did. Let's look at verses 8 through 9. Who has number 3 for me?
I've got it.
Go ahead.
So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of the whole earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the whole earth.
So, have you ever done any international traveling? Anybody here?
Mm-hmm.
So, have you ever gone to a non-English speaking country? Mm-hmm. What kind of experience was it when you had to go out and talk to somebody about buying something or finding a place? Was it very easy to do?
Didn't have to.
First question is, do you know English?
Yes. And it's so useful because a lot of people do in other
Yeah.
countries. But did you have a difficult time?
Oh yeah, just even the most simple things.
Yeah.
Just trying to find out where the bathroom is, where this is, where that is. Oh yeah, it's
Right.
very difficult. It takes a long time, man.
And you got your little book, you're looking up phrases, or you got your translator thing
Trying
on
to
your
pick out words.
smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Draw a picture.
Draw a picture. There you go.
Just let my mother do all the talking.
I feel so. Yeah, Germany. Yeah, I feel so foolish though, trying to describe something to somebody who doesn't have a clue what I'm saying.
And then you tend to speak really loud, you know. to-
Yeah, and you
somehow
gesture a
connect.
lot,
Thinking that's gonna help,
and
right?
you feel real stupid. You do because everybody else is communicating. You're not. You know, it must be really difficult to, like, for instance, be a deaf person and not be able to lip read or something like that, and wonder what they're saying all around you. You know, it must be a difficult thing to do that. But anyway, I went to Turkey, and we went out and went around this area nearby the base, and most of the people knew some English because they were selling things to us, so they had to learn, you know. But some didn't, especially the kids. And I would try to communicate with them, you know, like, where is this one shop that sells rugs, you know? And the kid would look at me like, what's wrong with you? Can't you say what I can understand? You know, and I felt very foolish. You know, and it was a very frustrating feeling, isn't it? You were gonna say?
Oh no, I wasn't saying it. No.
Yeah. But it was people who've gone on different mission trips. They've experienced, I think, too, where they'll come into a situation with the language group that they haven't prepared for yet, and they'll have to rely on a translator and things like that. Most of the time, I know that the Southern Baptists are really good about this. Before you can go on a mission trip to a different country, you must know enough language to be able to communicate.
Get by.
Yeah. Vacations, you know, maybe you're going to somewhere on the Yucatan Peninsula, and people there only speak Spanish, and you don't know Spanish, you know, or something like that. It can lead to frustration. It can lead to feeling of helplessness. If you were stuck there and you couldn't talk, you know, let's say your car broke down, you rented a car, or traveling through wherever it was, and no one knows your language because you're away from the towns. They don't care about learning English, you know. It's their country after all. You're the interloper. It can be a very frustrating feeling. So where does this name Babel? It says the name Babel comes from the Akkadian language of ancient Mesopotamia. It means gateway to a god, or gate of the gods. Well, that sounds very high and lofty, doesn't it? Very nice.
Babel? I thought it meant
We're not done yet. This certainly alludes to the purpose of the tower, right? Along with the numerous other ziggurats that are built throughout the region. In verse 9, the Hebrew word translated Babel, sounds similar to the Hebrew word translated confused, Baal, which suggests jumbling or mumbling or mixing, something like that. The wordplay they have here suggests that the Tower of Babel could also be known as the Tower of Confusion. It is ironic that the people set out to make a name for themselves, yet they ended up being famous only for their confusion. So we see that, yeah, there's that meaning, but that's what it's come to mean now, to babble. We even say it today. Well, you're just babbling, you know, like you know, a child still not quite sure what he's saying or she's saying, and it sounds like it sounds like he's just babbling right now, right? So, like I said, it's a subtle wordplay there going on. But anyway, so they had this international language, this one language. But now it's being confused, right? Can you imagine going through that and being able to talk to your neighbor, and now you can't anymore? Wow, would that be frustrating for you? It would be for me, at least. Anyway, we talked about communicating with somebody because of a language barrier, how difficult it is. Such situation can create a variety of emotions. We talked about frustration. We talked about helplessness. Anything else come to mind? Does that pretty much cover it? So this caused the people to finally do what God's will was. Gee, he's sovereign. Is his will thwarted by lowly man? No, because he's in charge, right? So that teaches us about God's sovereignty over his creation. God expects his will and desire to be carried out by his people. Believers can trust God to help them fulfill his purposes. What about us today? Well, let's look at a New Testament thing. Ananias and Sapphira, they had some land, and everybody else was selling the land and giving all the profits to the church, right? And they thought, well, we could sell this land. We'll just keep some back and say we gave it all. Do you think that God didn't know about that?
Oh,
He did, didn't he?
He knew.
Yeah, he knew. So we see that as well. How about in our lives today? You think God is going to let us get away with something that he knows is not in our best interest anyway, as a Christian?
You people don't listen.
There's times we get so frustrated. Why is this not happening? Well, maybe it's not what God's will is. You better look at what you're doing and why. What is your motivations, right? So this applies to us as well, is what I'm saying. God's wills will not be thwarted. Let's look at the main points we talked about, because they already rang the bell. But the first one is believers must safeguard against selfish motives. That's what the people were having, right? We're going to make a name for ourselves. Look how great we are. We're going to stay right here. We're not going anywhere. And number two, the unity of believers should be rooted in their obedience to God's plans. We talked about how he had to cause disunity amongst those people because of their evil intent. Now, for us as Christians, we need to be unified, of course, obviously. And so we're not talking about that. But we should be unified. This is what this point talks about as Christians. Last point, believers can trust God to help them fulfill his purposes. So we need to get on with God's will, find his plan and join it, right? That's a quote from Henry Blackaby. He wrote this thing called a study course about knowing and doing God's will. Very, very good study course that we did. Any comments or questions? We're going to wrap it up.
I like this study.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I liked it
Some
too.
of the things I didn't know.
Yeah, me too as well. You're right. I'm always challenged when I start learning these things like this. It just amazes me. I can't even say all the things I went through because I don't have time. We're already over time.
Kingston and I were talking about languages this morning, and he is taking French.
Oh boy, pardon.
I know. And I took Spanish.
Mhm.
So we were just briefly comparing the root words,
Right.
right? Which a lot of the languages derive from Latin.
Yes, they're Latin based.
So, yeah, Latin based.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though it's French and Spanish, there are similarities.
There are similarities. Yeah. So last thing, the challenge from our study today is to look for areas of selfishness in our own lives, right? Maybe ways that we are not actually staying on God's track on these things, and to change those things, right? And put safeguards in place so we don't fall into that kind of a trap as well. So let's have a word of prayer and we'll be dismissed. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for these examples that we read today from Genesis 11, Lord. Reminder about your sovereignty over all, over us. And for the fact that as Christians, we can trust in you. We can trust in your faithfulness. We can have faith in those things that you have set up for us, Lord. And I just pray we seek those things diligently. Thank you so much. Keep us safe, Lord, as we travel to our homes, and be with our pastor as he brings us a message in the next hour. Thank you again in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.
And again, I want to apologize to those online. I'm sorry. I thought I had it set up. It really irks me that I found out it wasn't working like it should have been working.
I'll put those, can you carry
It's
those?
nice of
Yeah, or
Matthew
you
to
want
check.
to in your bag.
What's that?
It's nice of Matthew to check.
Yes, it is. I'm glad you did. I meant to have somebody check that for me, and I didn't do it. But anyway, this is Grace Baptist Church. My name is Norm Ellis, and glad to have you with us. We'll see you again next time.
Thanks, Norm, that was good. Appreciate that.
So, you know, I like it when people say, oh, they're ancient people.
I love
They-
you too.
They don't know
That's
how to
so
do
nice.